Hey Ryan, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you just fine. How are you?
How you doing?
Good. How about you?
Tired. I'm
Yeah,
okay.
yeah, I believe
Yeah.
it. Thank you so much for being here with me, Eddie. I really
Well, no
appreciate
problem.
it. And I know you've had a really hectic, crazy couple of weeks, so I really, really appreciate your time. How are you holding up after your shows?
We clocked 8 to 12 every night. So I don't get home. I'm about 18 miles from the Ryman downtown, so it takes me about 20 minutes to get back to the house.
Wow.
So, then I have to wind down. Usually it takes about an hour for me to come down from everything. So I get to bed at about 1. But Saturday and Sunday, I had 10 o'clocks at Sound Emporium with my friend Kerry Marks and his wife Catherine. So I had to be up at 8:30 to get there at 9, set up in time.
Wow. Wow. Yeah, you're certainly keeping yourself busy there, Eddie.
Trying to figure it all out.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, hey, welcome to Rydog Steel Hour here on Steel Radio. It's a pleasure to have you.
Thank
Let's
you.
jump right in. So, would you please introduce yourself to our listeners? Who you are, where you're from, what do you play? If you want to answer, how old are you? Give us the
Yeah.
goods.
Well, my name is Eddy Dunlap. My real birth name, full name, is Carl Everett Dunlap. My dad was Everett Meacham, and they called him Eddie. So I don't know where Eddie comes from. I guess from Everett. But now I'm 34, and I was born 2 hours northwest of here in Paducah, Kentucky. And
Mhm.
I started coming to town right when a lot of things were rapidly changing. I grew up playing music where I come from. I started playing pedal steel really late. I was probably junior, sophomore in high school. So I've been at it about 16 years, maybe so
Mhm.
far. Yeah, I wish I would have started earlier. I started playing guitar first, and then I was probably more proficient and got more jobs as a teenager as a bass player.
Mhm.
And then I really just hammered at the pedal steel and tried to make that a thing to get me more jobs because there wasn't anybody playing the steel guitar. And I was kind of weird and wanted to be different anyway.
Mhm.
And my dad's best friend, Willie Sims, we played a lot together, and they played for years. He was a great steel player, and he kind of showed me what the pedals did, and I really learned a lot from him.
Mhm.
So I started, but after I did a lot of that as a teenager, I started coming down here around 2009 after high school. I was going to go to law school in Louisville originally, and then once I found out the concept, there are musicians that don't play in a band, but they play on people's records and then every day, and then they go home. I thought, well, that's more appealing to me than anything. So I decided to try that, and they hadn't kicked me out since, or I can't
Mhm.
afford to go home. I got to stay here. So, but, it was everything was changing very rapidly when I started regularly drive. When I was able to get my driver's license and come down here, like the infrastructure was nothing like it is now. The amount of people that lived here it was a lot lower. And as far as the music industry at the time, we knew and felt something new was happening, with younger, newer artists and the pop and the hip hop influence, and radio was changing. We were getting kind of more fresh faces in all facets of the industry. The great Joe Galante, he retired from RCA. That was a big deal. Uh, and also streaming was becoming a thing, because people were starting to slowly not buy as many CDs, and units and sales for physical copies of music have been on the decline ever since.
Mhm.
So I've seen a lot of changes, since I started coming to Nashville, and now it's changing even at a more feral pace. I
Mhm.
mean, it's just every year it seems like we've reached somewhere else, that's more
Mhm.
foreign to us than what was before, as far as within the industry.
Mhm. Mhm. Absolutely. So, I guess my next question for you, Eddie, is
Uh-huh.
what got you started playing steel guitar?
Well, I always loved it. My dad loved it, But I almost started a few times earlier, but I chickened out, or I didn't think I would stick with it because steel guitar is a pretty big commitment. And I was very fortunate. My mom and dad really sought after that, and saw that I got the tools I needed, to do a good job and to progress and make money and become a better musician. So I wanted a Gibson SG really bad one time, and we went to the closest dealer was Mayberry Music in Anna Jonesboro, Illinois. Otherwise, you'd have to come down here to Nashville to buy something like that. This was before Musician's Friend or any of these Sweetwater or any of that, And we didn't have any official Gibson dealers in Paducah back then, unless they had a used guitar, which nobody sold a guitar like that. If they had it, that's what they played. So, when they finally got me a steel guitar, it was between that and my dad's best friend, Willie, playing with him. And then I really got more interested, and I had more of a drive and a confidence to learn when my mom and dad's record collection, they had a lot of instrumental records, and especially with pedal steel. The Buddy Emmons record that has the basket weave 12-string and the rainbow across his hands, and he does the medley at the beginning of like Sugarfoot Rag and Indian Kill the Woodcock. I always heard of Buddy Emmons. I always heard, he's a great steel player, and I like steel guitar. But then when I listened to that record, I was like, holy cow, what the hell is this? This is the greatest thing I ever heard. And then I started listening to Jimmy Day and Lloyd Green and Paul Franklin. And then once I really realized how, steel guitar is just mind blowing, that's when I was addicted. I've been chasing that high ever since. And I started out on a 6-string lap steel with like a little single coil Stratocaster looking pickup. I think it was a Morel. It was pretty easy to find. I don't know if Dad bought it for himself or if he bought it for me, but I started to try to learn everything open on it, all the, that kind of stuff, and bar slants or that kind of thing. So they saw that I needed to progress forward, because there's only so much you can do unless you're Jerry Byrd or Caden Roberts or Chris Scruggs. There's only so much you could do, within the non-pedal world. And I love playing with no pedals, but there, I find that, there are more possibilities for newer voices or melodies with the pedals. So we went to Mayberry. Well, actually, I had Doug Brown. We played on every Monday or Tuesday night in Calvert City, Kentucky. He had a homemade steel. I don't know if he built it or if somebody else did, but it was basically a mutt of ZB and Showbud. And what's funny is I overtuned the E to F lever. I tuned it to F sharp. So for about 2 or 3 years, I played and it's kind of cool. Russ Paul does that because he don't have a C pedal. There's actually a lot of things you could do if you split that E to F sharp and then make up the C pedal with your A and B pedal instead of moving your foot over and being on B and C. Anyway, I could navigate pretty good on that, for what it was. Technique was really bad. I'd pump the volume pedal, and I was really exaggerating at first. I think maybe we all do this, but I was really, all the really cliche, exaggerated pedal bends. And when it was time to get something professional, my first guitar was a GFI single neck. But it was between that or a Showbud Baldwin crossover. And the guy at the music store, I said, I want the Showbud really bad because I'm a Showbud fanatic. And I'd watch Buddy Emmons and Buddy Charlton on Ernest Tubb show or the old Pet Milk Grand Ole Opry. I said, that's the best guitar set. And it's still my favorite. But he looked at me, he said, you don't want that. And he's right. Those things are pretty cantankerous. And a lot of them are rode hard and put up wet. But the GFI was a really good guitar. And that kind of allowed me to progress forward and refine my technical skills. And they're easy guitars to work on. There's no problems, no maintenance. Gene Fields is actually from the same town where I'm from. He's from Paducah originally.
Wow.
So I went from that, and then I wanted to learn how to play C6 because I thought, well, that's, if I'm wanting to become a better steel player, I got to do that. And then I got one for Christmas, and I started playing the back neck. I thought, what the hell have I done? Because you go from like chromatics where you got these passing notes and everything down here is like a minor third and a dominant seventh. So I was lost to see it. I only had one knee lever. I only had the, typical lower the C to a B. Now I didn't get to be a better C6 player until I started adding more stuff. And then I reverse engineered and learned, backwards that, I don't really need all that. I can kind of do the same thing within certain pockets with pedals or no pedals.
Wow. That's amazing. I'm kind of starstruck here, sitting here talking to you. I just admire your work, and I admire your playing so much, Eddy. And
thank you.
Oh, of course. I've got my 72 Showbud behind me.
You got a professional?
Yeah, it's a Pro 2.
And Pro 2 is the best one, actually. You got the 2-hole puller instead of the rack and barrel.
Yep.
Yeah, you don't have to worry about tuning it.
Nope. Once it's set, it's set. And it was really funny because the band I'm with, we had a gig coming up it was a couple weeks back, and it was like, oh boy, I bought this thing in February, and I really should change the strings. I haven't been playing it very much, but definitely needed to change strings. And so I changed the strings, and I thought, oh boy, what have I done? I'm going to be sitting here trying to tune this thing for a week, and I've got to play this weekend, and nope. It was fine. By Thursday night when we hit the stage, it was just fine. Good to go. And
those are more they're a little more reliable. The rack and barrel sounds good, and it don't play bad, but all the rack and barrels, unless Jeff Surratt goes through them or somebody knows what they're doing like he does, man, to me they slip. And we're talking like microsense, they really, and it's more so the A and B pedals when you push them down,
Right.
But the 2-hole puller's a lot better. Lloyd Green's guitar is a 2-hole puller bell crank with a single raise, single lower, professional changer.
Right. So speaking of Showbud, what do you play now, Eddy? Would you like to walk us through what you've got now?
Yeah, I play Show Pro guitar. I don't know. The Zoom camera, for some weird reason, follows me everywhere I go. But I'm trying to lift it up as best as I can. But this guitar, I've got pictures with this blue guitar probably all over my Instagram and on Facebook. But Jeff built this. This was the first one he built for me. And I play a Franklin, too. My Franklin was built for Carson Chamberlain in 1981, I think. And I always wanted a Franklin. I had a Legrand too. That was a fantastic Legrand. Some of them are good and some of them are, they're a little bassy and compressed and they don't play right. But I had a really good one. That was it helped me out a lot, for what I did. And, but I always wanted a Franklin. I always liked the tone of them and the sound. And finally, one day I was able to get one about 2007. I bought it off of eBay. And a very violent and rapid bidding war with some person in Europe that I never obviously didn't know who it was.
Right.
But somehow I got it. And I took it straight to Paul's dad's house. And, I've been over there I bought some pickups from him before for either the GFI or that Emmons Legrand. And I was just in awe of his dad and all that he did. But he wouldn't build any wood guitars. He built Paul he has 2 wood guitars, if I'm not mistaken. I'm not trying to speak for Paul Jr., but he's got the red, I call it the Christmas album guitar. And it's like Purple Heart and maple, and it's got this red purple finish on it. and it's a wood neck, and it's very snappy. You know, it's got a lot of bite, like an old Showbud, like a fingertip.
Mm-hmm.
And then he's got a blue one that Jeff built the cabinet with out of the same batch of wood as this. I think that, if I'm not mistaken, I think this is from a tree out at the Hermitage that blew over in a tornado. Gibson wound up with a lot of this kind of wood.
Right.
And Jeff and Paul bought some of it, and I called the blue Franklin the Show Pro Franklin, because Paul finished it out underneath with the changer and all of his mechanics, but Jeff did the paint. Jeff did the cabinet and had AJ Nelson do the paint for him.
Mm-hmm.
But I always and I've been hearing about Show Pro, you know, when they first started building them right before Dwayne Mars got sick.
Mm-hmm.
And I went and hung out with Jeff, and we've been best friends ever since.
Mm-hmm.
And he's the best. I like the wood guitar better anyway than the Formica and aluminum.
Mm-hmm.
There's cool things about Formica and aluminum, like probably the best one would be an old push-pull.
Mm-hmm.
But I like the lacquer finish and wood. And I think for my hands, I get a better tone. Now, all the tones I like, you know, whether it be, you know, Lloyd or Dan Dugmore or Russ Paul, they all play lacquer guitars.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Wow.
So that's how I got involved with Show Pro. And I've got 3 guitars, or I got 4 guitars, actually. I gave one of them back, and then I've got a new one coming where we've got old casted Showbud parts.
Whoa.
It's going to be the modern mechanics of Jeff's underneath, which is pretty close to what the similar design of what Paul's is. He and Dwayne Mars used to carpool together to Showbud every day, and they have the same school of thought on how a guitar should be. It should have round cross shafts. It should have comb finger like bell crank or rod pullers, as he calls them, you know, for the pull rods. Mm-hmm. And it should have a scissor with a really good pivot point for the all pull changer. You know, I just, for me sitting in a control room listening back at speakers at a record, that's the best tone to my ears.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
Wow. But
mix that with the aesthetic of the all wood, you know, body with no laminate. That, I think that's even more musical. So that's what I'm into. But this new guitar, the casted in place, I bought the wood. I bought quarter sawn roasted maple with no figure, no bird's eye, no flame or quilt in it. Straight grain from the Northeast. They're stronger because they have the trees have harsher winters to withstand, you know, so they're a lot more tough. You need something very stiff for a pedal steel guitar. So, and then I got old Showbud. I went back to old Showbud single coil pickups. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of where I'm at right now.
Wow. What an amazing story about your guitar and how you've got this one. And congratulations on the next one coming. I'd love to see pictures of it.
Yeah, I think I put them in my stories. You know, I'm bad at social media. I hate posting because, like, I don't. The whole concept of social media just weirds me out. Mm-hmm. You know, it makes me uncomfortable. You know, because it's just too stressful for me to look at. Too many weird, crazy, angry people that are like, okay, my opinion's better than yours.
Right.
You know, and I just, that turns me off. I don't want to appear like that to other people. You know, I'm kind of paranoid about stuff like that. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it's at the paint shop now. Mm-hmm. So as soon as I get some pictures, Jeff will put it on his Facebook. That's the only way he communicates. He's old school. Mm-hmm. I'm more of an Instagram guy. I like, you know, taking pictures of something I ate, you know, and saying, hey, this is pretty good. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But I'll do that. Hopefully this is the end all be all for me. Mm-hmm. I took these Showbud base plates, you know, that have the ribbed cage or the comb for the change your fingers. And then it has the hole for a pickup. I took the old Showbuds and I took a tuner to those plates. Mm-hmm. And I tried to, you know, get a note. There's 2 notes. It's like a drum. There's the fundamental, and then there's like the overtone. Mm-hmm. There's like 2 pitches, you know. So I tried to average them out to whatever the strongest was. Well, this is a B, and this has a in it, or an E. Well, this is the E ninth one. I set it aside. I mark it with a Sharpie. find the same thing for the C6.
Mm-hmm.
I did the same with the boards too. I tapped them and said, okay, this is a certain pitch. I'm going to have this for the C6 side, and then the other one will be the E9. It's a little overboard, but no, I'm kind of in cork sniffing world now.
Well, I think tone is really important, and I think taking the time to build it how you want it is really important, you know?
Yeah, and I wanted to do like a tribute to, like, if I had a Franklin that had a wraparound wood neck, like, you know how aluminum necks have the wraparound design, like an Emmons or a Mullen or the Zum steels like that too. Well, what if you just do like a Baldwin crossover and just make the whole thing as a piece of wood? Because a lot of guys like that, they'll take the aluminum neck, cut off the tail end, and but the wood insert between that and the key head, which is great. There's nothing wrong with it. That's what a show bud is, basically.
Right.
But I always thought those crossovers sounded really good. Like Pete Drake and they have a wraparound, but I didn't want to stress Jeff out, and that's kind of on the back burner of custom projects. I'm gonna have to prototype it and do some experiments, but that'll come eventually. But with what I'm doing right now, I really need guitars to cover me, at home in my cartage rig or time jumpers or whatever. I want to just be able to walk in and be ready to go and not worry about, okay, do I have this guitar to take today?
Right. Absolutely. I completely understand where you're coming from. I guess that leads me to my next question, which is what are you currently working on, Eddy, now that you've finished your sub gig and now that things are hopefully a little bit quieter for you? What's coming?
Well, there's a couple of things. Like I've got some records coming up. I've got a session on the 13th at County Q, an independent project. And but right afterward, the Town Jumpers are doing the new Honky Tonk Tuesday over at East Side Bowl. Have you ever came to Nashville to the American Legion over at Post 82? Have you ever been?
I have not. No.
Well, that's kind of a hip happening thing. A lot of cowboy hipster, college kid, nudie suit and a cowboy hat with the tattoos and nose ring. I love it. It's cool. Yeah, that's kind of the hip place. They really made the American Legion Post 82 into an epicenter for cultural and artistic renaissance. And we played traditional country music there. Because they want two-step and dance and great beer and that kind of thing. But they moved venues. There's been a lot of weird, shady, questionable stuff that had to do with that local. So they're moving it to East Side Bowl. Well, they're going to do headliners to celebrate the move. And it's a upgrade, because the East Side Bowl is a really nice venue. It seats 700 people. There's a line array PA. Sierra Farrell's doing tonight. She's a headliner. I've worked with Sierra a couple of times. I work with Eddie Spears in the studio that produces her, and he produces some Zach Bryan stuff too. And he's just a wonderful person. But she's incredible. So she'll be kicking it off. It's going to be a big bang. Well, Time Jumpers are going to do next week on 13th.
Very good.
As soon as I get done with the session, I got to go straight to the East Side Bowl.
Wow. And
we're doing, we got Monday nights until the last couple of weeks of December. We'll take off for holidays. I've been subbing, Tommy White's one of my heroes, one of my dear friends and mentors. I'll sub for him out at the Grand Ole Opry for the staff band. And he's been really gracious to help me get in that world. So we've got some dates, I think, coming up, so I'll be working on that. And then, we've got 2 days with Ben Haggard on the 16th and 17th. And we're going to be working with Jamie Johnson for 2 days. And then we're going to try to finish up. He's recorded some stuff, and Paul's played some steel on it. I've got a couple of songs that Mike Eli and Ben Kidderman, Mike works with Chris Stapleton too, and Ben Kidderman, who's a steel player. a wonderful steel player and dobro player. He's manager for he's over at Vector. He's got a travel agency for Harry Styles and it's like a logistics company to get people on planes from one show to another. And he's a pilot too. But we're working on some new recording stuff with Ben, trying to make that happen. And then I talked to my friend Dennis Crouch a couple of days ago. He's been really sweet friend, and we're working on a Tim Bolo record and Whit Wright too. So we're kind of finishing that up here in the next, I don't know, couple of months. There's not really a trajectory or schedule, and we're all kind of busy doing our own things anyway. So that Timbo's a dear friend, and that's been a big passion project for me. And Tim he's super talented, and he's reeled something into something beautiful. And this new record, it's got Billy Sanford playing guitar on it. It's got Chris Gelb, me and Whit and Russ Paul. I'm looking forward to seeing what people think. The songs are really good too. We've taken the time with the songs.
Very good. Very good. Well, I'll definitely be keeping an eye out for that. And it sounds like you've got your plate pretty full, Eddy.
I'm trying. This week, also on the 11th at the Country Music Hall of Fame, I've got a musician spotlight.
Congratulations!
So I've got that, and trying to get all that figured out, and we'll do a few tunes, and then I'll talk like I'm doing today with you, and that'll be fun, and just probably do more subbing, like outside of recording and, time jumpers and stuff. I'm going to try to take it easy this winter, that way I can relax and catch a breather. But I'd like to start producing some more records. I'm starting to do that. I got a studio here at my house that I put in. I got drum room and control room. It's pretty humble, but I've got a bunch of outboard gear. I like analog mic pre's and tubes and that kind of thing. So I'm kind of looking for artists, that don't have much of a budget, but they want to make good music. I'm really open to finding somebody, that's hungry and got something unique and creative, and try to make the world listen to it, procure songs. If the songs aren't strong enough, or if there's a lack of them, and the artist doesn't write, we just go to publishing companies and we'll just find something, or we'll find co-writers, or maybe we can make something. So that's kind of what I want to get into. I want to be a session musician or session steel guitar player that produces records too. But I'd rather make 3 records I'm really proud and happy of a year than try to do like a lot of people and make 20 as a producer. Not that anybody's making that amount, but there's a couple, song factory places that might do that, but I don't want to do that. I want to say a lot with less.
I understand that. I really do. And I appreciate your humbleness and having to take the time to produce records and to work on sessions. I feel often the music that I hear in the mainstream is very, like you said, it's kind of production based, and it's very snappy, quick to the end.
Yeah. You have a template. You have a box that's very finite. And that's the first thing, if I talk to an artist, if I'm going to be in a producer's chair, which is, very, very little compared to what I do as a session musician, I try to get to know them and who they are, and well, what do you want to say? What's your goal or objective with your songs? And then, as things progress, the other part of it is, what kind of artist do you see yourself as? Are you wanting to have a record deal and be a mainstream commercial country artist, which is great. That's a really lofty goal. It's hard. Do you want to be played on the radio? And if that's the case, I'm very upfront about, look, we're going to try to be unique and different, and have something that no one else has, but you do have to realize there is a very finite box that's like this big, that they're very small parameters of what's allowed.
Right.
And that's just how it is.
Mm-hmm.
Now, in a case like as an artist like Timbo, we don't have these parameters to crowd us in a corner.
Mm-hmm.
We have carte blanche musically. Mm-hmm. And if somebody doesn't like it or doesn't want to listen to it, well, that's just their opinion and taste. Mm-hmm. Whereas if I'm going to please a program director or a playlist curator, then, we're going to have to kind of bend a little bit. Mm-hmm. I think that's kind of my job as an ambassador or a liaison between artist management and the people that are part of the music industry. Mm-hmm. But songs are the key. Mm-hmm. And there's some okay songs that become number ones, but they're very forgetful, or forgettable, I should say. And you could take a mediocre vocalist. Mm-hmm. And I don't judge, there's great singers and there's singers that aren't great that I love. Like Chris Christopherson, a lot of people make fun of his singing. I love his voice. Mm-hmm. I think it's cool. You could take the best singer in the world with a mediocre song. Mm-hmm. Nobody cares. Mm-hmm. It's not good. It won't work. You could take an incredible song with a voice that's not exactly technically the best, but it's got emotion. And it translates, and that's more of what I'm into. Let's curate and have a song discography we can choose from. Mm-hmm. And all my favorite producers are world class songwriters. Mm-hmm. Like Billy Sherrill's an amazing songwriter. Keith Stegall's one of the best songwriters. Unfortunately, I'm not a good songwriter. I don't have any patience. I hate it, mm-hmm. but I love songwriters, listening to songs. I love making demos, especially when we go in at Curb or Omni, which was just sold and destroyed and bulldozed for another condo, unfortunately. Mm-hmm. But you go in and you got a Steve Bogard or a Win Varble for the day, somebody that's been around a long time and has had number ones, and they've seen all facets of from the modern back to what they were doing in the 90s. Mm-hmm. And it's an exhilarating high, mm-hmm. To just see a machine come to life, mm-hmm. and all of us work together as a band and engineer and to make to birth this song,
right?
And to hopefully have somebody hear it or cut it,
right? Absolutely.
I've got a single right now. There's the Luke Bryan song at 10, and hopefully I'll knock on my guitar. That's the only piece of wood I can see around close to me. Mm-hmm. They hopefully it hasn't been out for very long. It's only been out for about 5 months, maybe 4 months, but it's doing really well on Media Base as far as spins and more editions. It only lacks a couple of stations, but hopefully that'll be a number one. Mm-hmm. And I hadn't had one in a long time. I've only had about 3 or 4 as a steel player, but this will be my latest one. It's been about 3 or 4 years, mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. or maybe a little bit longer. So hopefully that'll happen.
Wow. That's awesome. I'll be honest with you, Eddie. Mm-hmm. I've looked up to you and you're playing for a long time. And I'm sure, like you and Russ and other A-team musicians that are out there right now, it's taken a lot of grit, a lot of hard work to get to where you are today. And I just ask you, what advice, suggestions, anything you can give to maybe musicians just like me who love your playing, love that style, love that tone, and want to pursue session work, want to pursue tour work? What can you suggest?
Well, this is the thing I see. I since you do a lot of the stuff on the steel radio, and you're young and hip, and you know a lot of people in the community, and you see a lot of other younger steel players. Steel is such a BC and an AD instrument. It's very polarizing. I don't fit in a lot of circles, unfortunately, because I get cubbyholed by people our age he's a good country steel player. Or, he's an old-timey steel player. But then all the older guys, they say, well, hell, Eddie's all in like Moby and Daft Punk and all that, all that weird music, all that pop stuff. It's like, well, you're damned if you do, damned if you don't. It's just 12 notes. Western music's only 12 notes. I mean,
right. Right.
It's all, and there's no, it's like storytelling. There's only certain kind of stories that are told,
Mm-hmm.
We repeat ourselves and their history repeats itself a lot. So, there's ballads. Actually, Vince Gill with these shows at the Rhyme, and he's I think it was Towns. He said Towns Van Zandt. He had a good story about him.
Mm-hmm.
Towns smoking a cigarette one time. He said, "There's only two kinds of music in this world: the blues and zippity doo dah." So, that's the way I look at it. I see a lot of people that they hate modern country music.
Mm-hmm.
Good luck trying to make a living if you hate modern country music. I don't know what to do. And I get a lot of people that message me that about, well, I don't know how to do this. I don't like all this bro country, I mean, I never understood the term bro country because all the songs are about trying to get girls, and drinking and partying. There's nothing bro about it, I guess. But that's kind of done now.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know what we've progressed to, but you got to be pretty open-minded. I see a lot of people our age that are really in, like the American Legion style crowd we were talking about, where they're retro and they're in the alternative honky-tonk music, and it's great. I love playing on that kind of stuff. I love listening to it, but they really are polarized and turn a deaf ear to anything outside of that world, especially with the steel guitar. I walk in and I've got all these spacey delays sometimes, or hey, let's try this thing with a pad in the background where I don't, I'm not playing your stereotypical. That kind of thing, which I love to do, but it's like I don't want to wear out my welcome. Let's do something that's unique and cool. And a lot of these guys our age, they go, hell with that shit. I ain't going to do that. It's not a good. You could do that maybe in certain places, or if that's all you want to do is play with a certain act. But that's you come here. That's not a good attitude to have. But on the flip side of it, a lot of guys that don't know anything about country music, they think they're too good for it. And, you ask them about, hey, you remember that Hal Rugg thing on Osborne Brothers? And I've had this happen with some people our age where it's like, I don't listen to that stuff. And it's like, well, why do you play the steel guitar? It's like they hate playing the steel. They just do it just because of the job.
Right.
And to me, that's what makes the steel cool is when you, and I'm starting to find out also, like all these really heavy intellectual cats, like that are from the jazz world or the blues or pop rock. You know what they're most interested in? Instead of that kind of, all that fast stuff or that kind of thing, they're interested in this, where it's just. Because they say, well, I can't do that. Right. I don't have that kind of sustain.
Right.
So, being open-minded really helps. Listening to a lot of different music. Like I listen to every steel player from Saul Hoopy and, Johnny Seibert or Don Helms to Greg Lease. And the same thing with the guitar players, fiddle players, keys, whatever, of any genre of music. That's helped me a lot because I like a little bit of everything. Listen to pop and hip hop, like really good stuff like the Roots or Outkast. I love Outkast. It's really musical, I'm pretty gringo when it comes, and Teresa when it comes to a lot of rap and hip hop and urban influence, because I grew up with MTV, with the mainstream stuff, but I'm not as educated as I should, or as I'd like to be, compared to a lot of my peers, where they could tell you, a lot of Bone Thugs and Harmony B-sides or DMX. I feel like I should know more about a lot of that. I like it. I just, I'm not educated in it like I am with country music or pop music, or not necessarily pop music, but like 70s pop, AM radio, rock.
Right, right. No, I completely understand. And that was something that I really resonated with there, Eddie, was when you said having this open-mindedness. And I've talked with a couple of other folks on the show about open-mindedness when playing, and especially because our industry is changing and it's different than, what I'm sure you listened to growing up, or even when I was growing up. I'm only 20, but it's changed a lot in the last 5-10 years, and it will continue to change.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of 5 or 10 years, I love to ask this question.
Yeah.
Where do you see yourself in 5 or 10 years? What goals do you have for yourself, or things you're looking towards?
Hopefully not have all my arteries clogged, that's for sure. Or have, that kind of thing.
Right.
If I can make it 10 years, hopefully, if everything goes like it should, I'd like to still be involved, subbing out at the Opry. That's very important to me. That's, doing more records on both sides of the glass, and, going out if the situation's right, like if a dream call like John Mayer or something happened, I love what he does, or Bob Weir, Don Was, that kind of thing. I would break my no touring rule for that, or a few, a couple of other people, but hopefully something like that. And then also having more time at the house, with my family, where I don't have to just go out all the time and say yes to playing, at some showcase somewhere, that kind of thing, which I enjoy doing, but I'm getting older, I even though I'm only 34, I can't jump as high as I used to when I was 20. When I was like 22, when I was playing with Clay Walker and play with Jon Pardi, there was a time period where I could catch a plane from one bus to another within a day. And just the thought of it just sends me in panic mode right now. I don't think I could handle it like I used to. So, and I know as time goes by to be at the level and hold the, to uphold myself at a higher standard, I'm going to have to really pace myself and slow myself down, focus on, being at home more and getting better sleep, and going to the Y and do some yoga and lift weights and that kind of thing, and not live in a very fast pace like I have for the last 15, 20 years of my life. Well, since I was probably a late teenager. Wow. So that's what I'd like to do. We'll see. Well, who knows what's going to go on, but hopefully I still have a job and still get to play steel for people. And I want to learn more. I don't want to get this, complacency that's really dangerous for a lot of session musicians, where, they get here and they're comfortable and they don't really want to go anywhere else. That can be the kiss of death sometimes, where they just don't care. I have a fear of that, but I've been told by a lot of my mentors that, hey, if you're aware of it, then it ain't going to happen.
Very good.
And like what Russ Paul always tells me, I love Russ. He said, "Oh, you're too curious. You're a little too analytical to get on the passe mode." So hopefully I still have that healthy curiosity.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's awesome, and I hope to stick around to be able to watch you grow in your musical career wherever it takes you. We're gonna start wrapping up, so I have one question for you. If there's anything you could say to our listeners, the audience, my audience, Steel Radio, the community, the Steel Guitar Forum, your mom, your dad, anyone else, what would you like to say, Eddie?
Thanks for giving me any kind of attention or being a friend. I'm very thankful and love everybody, and I'm very humble. I've got my dream job.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You know, I hopefully one day when I'm in a situation financially and I'm kind of on the back end of all of it, you know, I definitely want to figure out how to help people more, you know, and to help steel guitar, and it's the people that want to play it, and you know, just kind of pay it forward and give it back.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You know, because it needs to survive. You know, that's what, you know, Paul Franklin has done so much, you know, by giving, you know, very amazing advice, you know, technically and psychologically and musically, like on the steel guitar forum or through the instruction thing he's got right now. It's world class.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know of any other instrument that has a course like that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he's writing the book on it, basically, you know, and it's not just, hey, let me show you this lick. I mean, there's some of that, but, you know, he's really diving into, you know, very deep things that no one else talks about.
Right.
And he's showcasing, you know, like interviews and the psychological part of with like, you know, he's got the best interviews, you know, like he's got Tommy, he's got Lloyd, he's got a Dan Huff on there. I mean, you can't buy that kind of stuff. Right. I mean, that's worth its weight in gold.
Right.
And, you know, taking somebody like I'm in this mode right now with steel guitar where like with my gear and everything, I'm not really trying to do anything steel guitar related. Mm-hmm. I don't want to play steel guitar speakers or amps necessarily. I want to use a tube amp and like whatever Tom Bukovac or Chris Donegan have, mm-hmm. you know, and just say, you know, hey, what are you using? And see if that works for me, steel, mm-hmm. you know. Mm-hmm. So that's, you know, I guess to say anything to anybody out there, thanks for being a friend and love everybody. And, you know, hopefully we get to see more of each other.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I love that, Eddy. And thank you so much for being here and taking time out of your busy schedule.
Thank you, Ryan, for having me. It's an honor.
Oh, well, thank you. And you're welcome on the show anytime. I'd love to have you back.
In like Merle on what was the Coast to Coast AM?
Yep.
Where he talked about, I see that flying saucer the other day out in my field. I'll do that to you. How's that?
Hey, that's perfectly fine, Eddy. Perfectly fine.
All right.
Hey, thank you again. And we'll wrap it up now. So thank you for tuning in to Rydog Steel Hour. We'll be back after the break.